We're live. It says I'm live. Are you live, Jeff?
We're live. Yep, live.
Just like that. Boom. We are live. We are live. Lots to talk about. World of Concrete. Caleb, your first time there. What do you think?
Oh, it's my second time there.
Oh, it was your second time? Oh, I
Yep.
apologize. I did not know that.
I went back in 2020. No, 2022. I guess it'd be 2 years prior to that.
Okay.
It was my first time there. But the first time I went there, I hadn't even touched a pump yet. I didn't really know anything. I was just kind of going there to learn classes, and a lot of it kind of went over my head. But this year was a lot better. I enjoyed it. It was fun to actually walk around and look at things and understand what it's used for, and stuff like that. So
you're a busy guy.
It can be a bit overwhelming. It's almost like going to the Toys R Us for the first time. You got some adrenaline when you walk in and you see all that shiny new equipment. You're stretched up and over the ceilings and stuff and everywhere, and it's almost like you're kind of a fog at first, and then you kind of, after a little bit, you kind of start settling in. But I did kind of shoot myself in the foot by not going a little earlier. For one, there's a lot of stuff outside that I would like to go look at and go see. So definitely next year I'm going to try to, like going to Buc-ee's. Matt says, I don't know if y'all been to a Buc-ee's yet or not, but if you get the experience, you need to go to a Buc-ee's.
What is a Buc-ee's? We don't have those in Canada.
It's a convenience store that's the size of Walmart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty outstanding.
The one down in Texas, they hold the record. I think they have 124 gas pumps.
There's over 100 at them. Yeah.
It's crazy how big they are.
Yeah, and on a holiday and a weekend, at some of them, you have to wait for a pump, and it's not that the gas is all that much cheaper, and it's really not, but it's just getting a pump and then getting in park and going and grabbing something. So yeah, it's not convenient as a normal convenience store, because you go in, you're going to drop $100. That's besides fuel.
Well, don't they got like a clothing line and everything? You can get almost everything there.
Yeah, they got they got clothes. They got a hunting section. You can go in there, and it's not like they just got. I mean, they got all the things that you'd think of. Like, I wonder if they make that. Well, it's sitting in that store. Just all kinds of stuff. They got the stuff for the barbecuing. I probably carry 30 different types of seasonings that different people make, different known companies for barbecuing. I mean, snacks.
It's like a Walmart for dudes, mostly for dudes kind of thing.
Well, it's got the women's section. There's really some pretty nice stuff there. So plus the food's there. But hey, there's Farmer's Chris. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that guy, but he's a heck of a guy. He's part of the Derby crew, Indiana. So I took him to Buc-ee's when they came down to visit me that year.
When I come down to Texas, Jeff, when I finally get down there, we'll do a YouTube video, Canadians' first Buc-ee's experience.
Right.
All right, I got. Should we get Maury in here?
Bring him in. The two hunters. These guys were back and forth today over who's got the bigger buck and the bigger trophy. A couple avid hunters here.
I didn't realize Maury and I had that connection.
Oh yeah, big outdoorsman.
Am I on
looks
there?
Like he's leaving the hospital.
You're on, Maury. No, you didn't bring your ear pods, but I
feel like we're walking the sidewalk of Vegas with him again.
Well, I'm just standing outside the hospital waiting for the kid.
We were at Maury and I were out this morning. He poured 600 meters, and apparently he finished up in time, so that's good.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Good. Yep.
Excellent. So you guys made good time today then, Maury?
Not bad. I'm out in Chilliwack now at the hospital waiting for the kid.
Oh, okay. Well, we made some YouTube magic today. I was telling Jeff that you showed me how to prime out a big boom with water.
Just water. Amazing.
Well, arguably water and foam oil. we'll get into that when the video has been released a couple weeks from now. But yeah, there's some controversy there, I think.
How are you, Jeff?
Good, sir. How are you been?
I'm good, thank you.
So Maury's
glad to see you on the video today on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm glad I made it. Thanks for inviting me in.
So Maury's been in a bunch of my videos. I'm sure regular viewers will recognize him. Maury, real brief, how long you been running Pump now?
38 years.
And you've run everything, like right back to the old toggle switch Thompsons, the whole deal, seen it all pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. 745 is what I started on.
Gee, so that's good, because I don't think between the three of us here, I don't think any of us, our experience goes quite that far. So it's good to have a little bit more of that history joining us this evening, I think. So
amazing, eh? And I'm the youngest of you all.
I'm sorry that I just referred to you as history, but I mean, you know, I can only sugarcoat it so far.
Yeah.
So what was this? So what was the pump? Always heard about I guess you had to click the toggle to move the boom. You click a toggle switch to go right or left, and think is it
right or left, up and down, second section. So if you just held the toggle switch, it would just swing, right? So to move it over slowly, you'd have to click it on off.
Okay, so that's how you softened it up then.
Correct.
Okay.
Basically just like an old swing, black and white with joysticks, right?
Right.
So
did you get to the old squeeze pumps? Did you ever run any of those?
No, never ran one. Seen one though.
Yeah, I've heard about them here, but I haven't been able to really nail anybody down about it, to be able to get some questions in about them. I have questions on how things reacted and stuff like that.
Scott, maybe we could get Len in here. He may have had some dealings with the squeeze.
On the squeezies?
Yeah.
Because was Len the guy that brought you into pumping?
Yes.
Or he was.
Yeah. So he's pushing 45 years on the pumps now.
So probably a good story. How did you actually get into pumping?
I was pile driving, and then you remember Tiz?
Yep.
He called me up. I was over on the island, and he called me up and asked if I wanted to try this out, and I unfortunately did and stayed with it, and here I am 38 years later.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a guy in the chat that said he owns a squeezy line pump.
Well, better him than me.
I was gonna say they still run them in Australia, and then Daniel here chimed in from Australia, who still owns one. I think they're, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at least up until 10 years ago they were still relatively common there. I think. Maybe Daniel can chime in on that.
From the guy I've talked to about it, what little I have, it had to be in the 80s, probably when they had one around here running one. So,
what was the whole principle? It basically rolls the concrete out like a tube of toothpaste, right? It squeezes it through.
Maybe Maury knows. I don't know how it got into the boot, but yeah, he was explaining to me that there was 3 rollers that would roll. And that's basically like you're saying, it just squeezed it, into the system, somehow. But I need to talk to that guy. He had a crazy story. They pumped a bunch of he pumped a high school stadium bleachers with one, and I think it took them 24 hours to do that.
Yeah, I've only seen one, never seen it in operation. It was just up in when I was doing a job up in Williams Lake there, Scott.
Oh, okay.
It was just sitting in the ready mix yard there, but never seen one in operation.
My guess would be that that it would be continuous flow, but I would also suspect it's probably a fairly maintenance intense high wear item, and I don't know how it would deal with really harsh mixes. This is all speculation, but it's kind of what I could see.
Yeah, it didn't look too inviting for me, anyways.
Well, we got Michael Cetnar. He may have some experience with one.
Should we bring him in now?
Yeah.
We got our special guest commenting in the comment section. Maybe that's a bad sign for us.
All right, we'll bring him in.
Hey guys,
There he is,
Welcome.
the man of the hour.
Hey,
Mr.
Mike.
Conforms.
Scott's been trying to get me to do this for I don't know how long.
We finally broke him down. World of Concrete was the knockout blow. We finally got him.
Wore me down. I did it for Jeff, not Scott. So,
Oh, a fellow countryman, of course. I know how it is. Ay.
these squeeze-crete pumps, I didn't know anything about them either. And I have a guy that makes a little. It's not a trailer pump. It just sits on the ground like a big box, and they just fill up the hopper, and it gravity feeds. And this little roller just keeps squeezing the hose like toothpaste. It just keeps squeezing and squeezing and squeezing, and it pushes it out, and they get actually some decent pressure out of it. But it wears out that hose, that roller keeps rolling on. And when it stops working real well, you got to change out that section of rubber hose. And it's a special hose. I don't even know what kind of hose it is.
What kind of mixes can they pump with that, Mike? Does it have to be pretty
They were
buttery
shooting
stuff?
shotcrete with this stuff, like a peat gravel mix.
Really?
But I was thinking, doesn't this little roller thing crush, all the rock? And, I don't know. I don't get it either. I'm not.
Yeah.
I only got 30 years in, so I don't know.
I couldn't think that you could put too harsh of a mix in it with that roller piece. And the
No.
theory that we're talking about. But I wish Daniel, I don't know if he's able to chime in the comments and give us a little more information about it. Or maybe we can send him a link to an email and get some kind of foot video of one or something. Would you be willing to do that, Daniel? Are you in the comments still?
Yeah, I've never even heard of a squeezy pump. So
Oh,
Matt.
Matt just commented. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, Matt's been doing, small trailer pump, kind of rigs with what he's got with his, what's the name of his rig, Scott? The Mud Demon?
Mud
The
Demon.
Mud Demon. Yep.
Yeah. So a plug for Matt. Go check out his Mud Demon. It's pretty impressive. I watched Jeff's video and I was like, gosh, Matt, that's a pretty neat little machine. I was impressed by how fast it did, how there wasn't a lot of surge, in the line, yanking it down the stairs. Because I think I watched you pour a landing at your house, Jeff, or something, right?
Right. It was for a customer, but yes, it was a mezzanine, I guess you could say, or upstairs deck. But that was probably the most impressive one. That's the one we actually had some 1-inch rock that we ran through that thing. So yeah, no, it looked pretty cool.
Mike, should we formally introduce you, like a little bit of your background and your bio, because you got a pretty impressive resume. He's not just another sales guy. People, Mike is one of us. He has extensive pumping experience on some pretty high profile projects.
Yeah, so I've been pumping concrete since '94, so I got 30 years in. The last 10 I've worked for Conforms. Conforms wanted to hire somebody that's actually done the work, and not just some guy that sells, pipe or hose. And that's how Scott and I got to know each other, and Scott's brother Tony and Maury. Maury and I have worked on a few different projects that have been kind of challenging. And these are Scott and Maury are two of the guys I reach out to when we're doing something a little crazy sometimes too, and ask them questions. So it's, this cell phone makes me really smart when I can call people like Jeff and Maury and Scott and ask them questions about their experience. And then I just don't tell anybody that you guys helped me, and I just, sound cooler.
It's kind of what I do with my brother Mike in the high rise jobs. I just show up and pretend like I actually know what I'm talking about, and he's done all the hard work. But maybe we'll bring him on a little bit later. So just to he can set the record straight.
Yeah, so I pumped concrete in Vegas for 20 years, and I did a lot of high rises: Mandalay Bay, Park MGM, which used to be Monte Carlo. I've done the Wynn Encore, the Wynn. I was involved with quite a few different projects in the city. So, we ran a lot of swing pumps. I started out on a gate machine with manual outriggers. And at the time, I didn't have enough ass on me to push up the outriggers uphill. I now got the ass, but I don't know if I have the strength to push those things uphill. They're so heavy. But
Would that be similar to the machine that was at the show that had been restored
yes,
this year?
yes, that was very similar. The only difference was it had a bigger pump kit, because I started on an 88 Schwing 28 meter. That was my first pump.
So what did Mike? And I never got a straight answer to this one when I posted it up on Instagram. The 28 dash or slash 800. I know the 800 is in reference to the pump kit on that machine. Do you know what specifically it refers to?
They had they named their main pumps like A, 1, 2, whatever, and that had some different A main pumps that made it go a little slower and everything. So they just kept they kept improving the hydraulics and the pressure. Back in the day, they had a hell of a time transferring the energy from the engine to the stable box. They would lose a lot of energy. So those things just didn't do a good job. Nowadays, you can get a high pressure pump, the truck mounted Putzmeisters, the 2110s and 2109s, that'll do a high rise. Back in the day, those things couldn't do more than maybe 100 bar, so they just didn't do a good job back then. They do now.
We were out today, Mike, with Maury's nearly brand new 40-meter Alliance with the high pressure kit on it, and they were doing close to 600 cubic meters. And that thing, not only does it hammer the mud out, but it was incredibly smooth, even with the smaller 8-inch material cylinder, more strokes per minute or even per meter. Rock solid smooth pump kit, super impressive. So like you said, some of these high pressure machines now are just absolute animals.
Well, I think the pump industry got a little crazy. Like, we need these 10-inch material cylinders, we need 9-inch, we need all this. They got kind of crazy thinking that if they load more in the material, but they still got to reduce down at the back end. And I think that was causing a lot of the kick in some of these lines and making them not very smooth, because that back pressure has got to be doing something somewhere. So I've been on some machines that have 5-inch cylinders, and this thing's a monster, but I mean, it was smooth as silk.
Would that be like a shotcrete pump then, or
no? It was a big trailer pump.
5-inch cylinders.
Yeah.
Wow.
That way they could transfer. They weren't reducing, and they got a better power transfer or pressure transfer through the cylinders. I don't know, but they had 5-inch cylinders on it. It was crazy.
I agree with you, Mike. I think the bigger cylinders are just a pain in the ass on there. You can only stuff so much down that pipe anyways.
Well,
right?
On my side of the fence, I'm talking to customers, and even when I wasn't, I worked for a contractor that only did like $500 million plus projects, and I managed their fleet. And they're like, "Hey, Mike, why can't we pump these walls and columns so fast? The pump's rated at 150 yards an hour." I'm like, the walls and columns, we can't pour that fast without making them explode, and the laborers can't move that fast. It just there's a lot of people just don't get it. It's like, I don't care if that thing's rated 180. You can't feed it that fast. We can't get mixers back there that fast. And if you can, you're definitely not doing it very safely. It's insane. These new pumps that are just so jacked up on yardage per hour. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I get people that ask me how fast we can pump concrete, and I basically tell them I can pump as fast as you can get mixers to me.
What's funny is what you say that, Jeff. I'm like, well, how fast you got the mud coming? They're like, a truck every 10 minutes. I said, then I'm going to pump 60 yards an hour. And they're like, well, you said you could do 100. Yeah, but you have it being delivered at 60 yards an hour. More than keep up with your guys. And they get mad. I'm like, dude, this is just math. 10 minutes. There's 6 trucks, and 60 minutes worth.
Here's a good question between everybody on the panel, and Maury and Michael probably have some really good input on this, especially. Realistically, what is the fastest that you have ever pumped over the duration of 1 hour. Not like the fastest you've pumped one load off, but in 1 hour, the most concrete that you've pumped through a boom pump. Legitimately.
I'm going to say 160.
Really?
Is
And what
that
machine
meters?
was that on? Meters.
Those are swings. Those
Oh,
are
Mike's
swings.
in yards. That's why Mike's in yards. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So 120 meters.
Yeah. Best I did was that.
But I mean, so in Vegas, we have, when we were doing like Mandalay Bay, it was a gigantic piece of property. I mean, we had 40 acres just around one pump, to get trucks and stuff to. And they could stage 10 trucks in front of a pump. It was like no big deal. See, James on the comment said he did 100, and that's about right for most places that, because you just don't have the room. You can't get the trucks there. They can't, make sure the slumps are right, all that kind of stuff.
I'm going to say 100 and 110 yards.
Yeah, I would say the fastest I've seen is realistically is going to be between 90 and 100 meters per hour, even though the new pumps with all the fancy electronic gauges might tell you 130, 140. In my opinion, it's never actually laying that down. It would be 90 to 100, probably with a piss wet slump through a 4.5 or 5 inch hose, and that's the anomaly. But the reality is, on average, on a big mat pour, even with a 5 inch hose, maybe 70 to 80 an hour, realistically, because like you guys are saying, most outfits they can't get the ready mix trucks on and off the pump fast enough unless they've got a coordinator there that's dedicated to doing that job and having everybody slumped up and ready to go ahead of time. These days, half the guys back on, they haven't even looked at their lobe while they waited 20 minutes to get on the pump, and they go to put it in the chute and it spills over and none goes in the hopper. It all goes on the ground. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But we were fortunate that the company I started working for, the silent partner in the pump company owned the ready mix company. So he took a lot of feedback from us, that, hey, you need guys up there slumping the trucks, making sure they're ready to go, all that good stuff. And Vegas is a big city, but not really. I mean, if you order concrete the same day, you order 200 meters of concrete or 200 yards, you can almost get it the same day. Whereas most, like where Maury lives, what do you got to order, Maury? A week in advance?
At least a week in advance.
Yeah. See, we never had that in Vegas. It was just you needed shit. They got it to you and took your money, and supplied you with concrete. They might have said, "What time you want it? Noon? Well, we can do 1 o'clock." And okay, 1 o'clock's fine. Let's go. What about you, Jeff?
It's the time of year. Like right now, it's readily available right now. It's things are a little bit slow here. Plus the weather's got things moved around. But when I poured my house slab, it would have been the summer of 2022. I scheduled the concrete. It was probably about 6 weeks out is when I scheduled the concrete. That was when we were going through that shortage, though, or what they said was a shortage. Matter of fact, when I scheduled the concrete, we hadn't even tore the house down that we were tearing down to put the house in. So basically, I scheduled the concrete, and I called my other guys. I said, "Concrete schedule. We're pouring on July the 13th." And of course, one of them was like, "Well, okay." The other one was like, he kind of threw a wrench in his schedule, but he made it happen for me.
Now, Mike, would you find in Vegas, obviously in the summer and spring, everything is night pours? Is that correct?
Yeah, it made it really hard. The hours of service thing, I don't know how I didn't kill anybody driving that pump with no sleep, because we would pour in the middle of the night, because in August it's 100 degrees out with the sun down. And I'm sure Jeff has the same thing. So, I mean, and for anybody in Canada, we're talking 40 Celsius at midnight, so it's crazy. I mean, we've got chilled water and 10 bags of ice in it just to keep the temperature of the concrete down. So we would do 300-400 yards in the middle of the night for a Home Depot or a Walmart or something big. And then we get, at 7 a.m., we're done with all that. Then all the residential guys that can start, for noise would start up, and you'd be out until 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and you started at 10, 11 o'clock at night, getting to the yard, warming your truck up, doing your pre-trip. It was brutal. Some days I said I don't even remember driving home some days, or let alone driving to the job in a 100,000-pound antique swing heavyweight pump. I mean, I don't know how I did it some days.
Was a lot of that stuff mobile batch plant set up on site right at the project?
No. Vegas is like, you can't keep your windows open at your house in Vegas because the humidity is so low that the dust just gets trapped in the air and flies around everywhere. So what was happening on some of these portable sites is their material is getting too dirty, from the wind blowing around, because when they're on a portable like at Mandalay Bay, they had a portable batch plant, but not many, because the dirt just blows into all the sand and all the rock and it gets dirty. And then the mix design is quote unquote off. So they just didn't like it. They just batched it. And these guys had batch plants that were centralized in the city from way back when, that now are in the middle of everything, that people get mad because they're there, but they've been there for 40 years, and people just built up around them, and now they're mad because there's a batch plant in their, near their neighborhood.
I'm guessing for the larger pours at nighttime, traffic wouldn't be an issue for the ready mix, which probably helps a lot with supply. Like I know in Vancouver here, our traffic is so awful, and night pours really aren't an option. I think that's one of the biggest hindrances to our supply issue. I'm assuming the night pour stuff would really help in that regard.
So like the casinos, and I felt bad for some of the casino guests. We were pouring right next to, like the Bellagio. The Bellagio hotel's open, and we're pouring next door. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and this engine just screaming as we're hammering out concrete. And I'm like, all those guests have got to be, calling me bad names, from all their rooms, because I know they can hear that Mac, clear as day through that whatever glass is inside that building. So they did not care. Casinos did not care. They're like, they would say, we're opening December 1st, hell or high water. It's December 1st. If you guys got to work 80 hours a week, we don't care. Let's go.
Yeah.
Your microphone.
I think you're muted, Scott.
Yeah.
Hey guys, you're gonna lose me here right away. My battery's dead.
It was good to see you,
Maury.
Maury.
Yeah, good to see you guys. I'll join you soon again. I hope.
Yes, I hope so.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about that 5 section of yours that you have.
Sorry?
I want to talk to you about your 5 section boom you have, that 40.
Scott, I'm going to have to leave you here, but Scott ran it today. Didn't run it as good as Hunter, though. But
we even filmed it, Jeff. We got it on video. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, my headphone jack had popped out. Yeah, I can tell you all about it, Jeff. I ran it. I pumped one load, and I'm now an expert with it. So, what do you want to know about it?
Well, you already said it was pretty smooth. So,
no, it is. It's a very, very smooth pump. Actually, I was really, really impressed with it overall.
Does
Does
it look like a boom that you can get into tight spaces, like buildings that when you're really up tight close to them? Or is that main section just too big? Or
I think that the double Z, the 5 section double C, is far superior than the 5 section rolling Z for that kind of stuff. So not really. It's definitely much more versatile than a regular 4 section boom. Obviously, I really like the RZ for 85% of the work we do, elevated decks, regular residential work, because you can lock out a couple sections and do everything with the 4th and 5th. So I find it very user friendly, but I still think that for working inside of a building, a double Z is superior. A 31 telescoping swing is probably the be all end all in my opinion. What would you say, Mike?
I have everybody preach about the 31 meter swing. It's incredible. And why I haven't seen anybody copy them yet, or try to, make a similar rig, I don't know. I mean, they must have some decent patents on a bunch of different things, because these guys, some of the other manufacturers would have tried to do something. So That 31's the best. I think you're right. The double Z does really well. I think the RZ is a little clumsy when you're up close, when you're working up close to your machine.
Yeah.
So
the one I never understood was the ZR. That one to me is kind of it seems a little bit goofy. I mean, I've never run one for any length of time, so take my opinion with it as a grain of salt. But yeah, to me that one's always a little weird.
The DY40 is a ZR.
It is.
You still get the tip, still articulates up. Was it like 120 or something like that, 130, I think. But you pretty much have to lock out the fourth and the fifth to get the benefit. When you're going inside of a door, to get that length inside. And then push it in basically with the first couple of sections.
They're really handy for working under power lines because you can bring the third section backing closer to the pump than you can with an RZ boom. So they definitely have a benefit there, but everything else about them, from what I can see, it wouldn't be my preference.
Right. It wouldn't. It wouldn't. The RZ, I think, would be a lot more. From what I have in mind with the pump, the RZ would be more efficient as far as that goes. So is the line so how is it configured, that one that Maury has?
His is the 5-section RZ, so that's the one I think for what you do. I think it would be the preference for sure.
I think the Benton Star it's an RZ.
It is also an RZ. That is correct as well.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there these days in that size range for sure. I would, from what I've seen anyhow lately. So
I've heard a lot of guys have a lot of good feedback on like the 38, 39, 40, all the 5-section, anything in that size range and a 5-section boom. You're going to love it for its versatility, which is awesome. It's not something that I got to run at the time because back when I was actually running equipment there, it isn't as bad as today where there's a 32, a 31, a 32, a 33, a 34, a 36. Yeah. It's crazy. It's like you just pick a number between, 28 and 65 and there's a pump that, in that size.
So that's the challenge. How do you come up with a price sheet? Like I know what we did. We just did size groupings because like you're saying, Mike, there's literally a pump size in 1 meter increments from 20 meter all the way up to 65 plus these days. So instead of having 20 different sizes on your price sheet, we just move them into groupings, within like 4 to 6 meters of each other. And the customers like it better because it simplified things for them, is what I found.
I think on your side of the fence, it's easier to price because you can say, well, that's our 40 meter class or whatever. And it's this price per hour and this much per meter. Whereas on my side of the fence, our previous owner of the company was like, we need to tell people if they buy a 40 meter pump, it's this price. And we're like, we can't do it because we get into a problem where the chassis is different. Like up your way, Scott, we've got trucks that maybe have an extra axle or it's just a little longer. So they maybe have, an extra pipe thrown in there and, the booms are mostly the same, but it's the chassis that change. And, like the makeup pipe, if we make a 35-inch makeup pipe to a 37, they're the same price. So it's like, we have some latitude there, but it's basically the chassis that starts to change the quotes because of axle weights all over the country and how they differ. So that's what makes it hard for me to say, oh, you've got a 36 meter, if it's a swing, it's got a bunch of funky elbows in it that no one else has, so it's going to cost more. But if it's a DY Alliance, Concord type, they're more simplified, where we could possibly come up with it. But again, am I missing a pipe on the deck? Is it almost 4 meters long, because they ran those really long deck pipes that are suck, because of the weight, to get up on the deck. That's where the difference is on my side of the fence selling pipe, cause grief.
I can even see it in your catalog, Mike. Like you'll look at like a 36-inch long 4-to-3 reducer and it's X price. And you look at a 12-inch long 4-to-3 reducer, super uncommon. I'm assuming you don't sell or produce a lot of them. and it's like almost 3 times the price of the 36-inch, which is the bigger reducer with more material. But I guess it all comes down to production efficiency.
Right. For us, it's scale. I mean, when we have the guys make the blanks, and we work off our history. So if we sold 20 of these 12-inch reducers, we're not making a bunch, and each one of them is set up like a job shop. So these things are just set up, and we make 2 at a time, 1 at a time. Whereas the 28 or 36, we're having them make hundreds of the blanks, or we're making hundreds at a time in house, and then we put them on a robot and just make 50 at a time, 100 at a time. So even though the steel is not the same, volume wise, if for weight, it's about hours, to build it. So we make a lot of unique parts. But this unique part might cost double what a normal elbow is, because it's a funky elbow with an extension on it. We may make 10 of them a year. So I've got a hand, somebody's got to make that by hand and cut it and kit it and weld it. And it's, it is what it is. But you won't find those. You won't find those at some of the other resellers. These guys make the most common parts, and Matt makes stuff, in the, world for people. And Matt's comment is exactly right. Manufacturing is all about quantity for efficiency. So, when we can make 100, like when we make boom pipe, 3-meter boom pipe, we'll make hundreds of them at a time. That's it. We make hundreds. But, when you order your makeup pipe for any pump you have, every makeup pipe is a minimum size or a unique size. So all the makeup pipes are, cut individually and welded and put off the side and made it up with 3 meters so you can do any of it, do all of it. So it's about efficiencies.
So here's one for you, Mike, and maybe Caleb probably can tell the story better than I have. Caleb, the recent experience that you had with one of your reducers, you want to give us the rundown of that, and maybe Mike can offer some insight as to what the issue might be.
Mike, I'm going to be getting in contact.
Risky for this.
I'm going to be getting in contact with you because I need some new reducers. But so I would buy all my stuff through. I guess I don't know if I should say the name.
No, don't say the name. Just say not.
I'd buy the reducer, and I mean, I might have put 500 yards through it. Maybe that's a stretch. I think 500 yards is a stretch, and then I ordered that was a 3 to 2.5 reducer, and then I ordered a 4 to 3 reducer, and that thing's seen over 1,000 yards, and it still almost looks brand new. I'll see if I can pull up this picture here. But one day I went to go put it on, and I looked at it, and I was like, well, this is its last job. See if you could see that. No, you can't see that. That's not very good. But
you can almost see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally like half the size, less than half the size of the new one, and it has seen less than half the amount of concrete as the other one.
And they're
I called them and I told them about my problem, and they literally were just like, "Oh, well, let me know if you need to buy a new one."
Well, so Jeff calls me and he's mad about one of my products. Okay, I go visit with Jeff. Sit down with him, and I will verbally go through what I'm looking for, and I don't hide. If we made a mistake, I will stand up tall and say, we fucked it up. We made a mistake. So, I don't have a problem with that. So I start going with, what I see, I look for a nice clean circle around the weld end. When you look at, the pipe itself, is it a nice clean circle? Is it symmetrical all the way around? Usually not. If it's something on the boom, is it wiped out on one side because it exits an elbow funky, and it wore out on that side and all the rest of it's thicker? I'll say, you know what? You could have flipped this elbow and, got a better life out of it because the other side looks fine. is it just super wiped out on one side? I'm like, you know what? If you would have turned this pipe 90 degrees, you know, you could have got more life out of it because it's, you know, exiting somewhere or it's wearing funny. The funny thing is that the equipment manager for all of Brundage Bone, his name is Jeff LaBounty. Jeff LaBounty said it one day, and it just like rang a bell, like, duh. He said, every pump has got a trouble spot. Every single pump. And it's different on a lot of pumps. And as soon as you recognize where it is on that pump, you know that I got to go up on my crossover on this pump and rotate those 30s and turn that, you know, 3-meter pipe or that makeup pipe in there. And he said, that's where I tell the guys to spend the money on maintenance and the guys, you know, hours wise, because, you know, hey, I work for Conforms and pipe maintenance does save you money and will get you more life out of it. But if I take my Conforms hat off a moment and I'm working as an equipment manager and the guy that's paying the salary of, or, you know, or looking at the salary of 10 or 15 guys, I don't know if I want to pay you guys, you know, to turn the pipe and stuff all over the place. But there are select spots on that pump that I will pay you to do it. And it's worth it then. You know, for some companies, it's worth it, you know, more than others. But, you know, when I worked in Vegas, we were all union and the hourly rates were so high, it wasn't worth my time, you know, to get another 1,000 yards out of a pipe because I spent over $2,000 in labor, you know, to have a bunch of guys turning pipe. So it, you know, it's kind of a math problem, you know, for the managers and supervisors, you know, to look at. But there's definitely spots on that pump that wear faster that you should do maintenance on. And I strongly believe that even wearing my Conforms hat or not wearing it, you know, there's spots that you need to rotate and, you know, and turn the elbows.
I agree with you there. I think even I wish Dan was around. he kind of called me out on this subject. We rotate ours around, but typically where I see the most wear is basically around the deck, and then of course you know your little elbows, your 22s or your 30s and your 45s. You see them, definitely see them in those areas. And then on your big elbows, of course, your tip elbows, they take the beating. So rotating on them, I don't see that being a big deal because you're going to lose that elbow pretty soon anyway. So
Right.
We just wait till we get the little grout spew comes out, and then you just change the elbow at the end of the job after you duct tape that hole up. But
well, like
the deck pipe, I see it in ours.
Matt put a good comment in there. You know, it's a lot of, you know, from going large to small, you know, and small outlets, you know, more pressure against the wall. That is very true. You know, I mean, anywhere where there's reduction, you know, is going to have, you know, turbulence in the pipe. So let's go into basic concrete, you know, how concrete flows. So concrete creates a barrier layer. The cream likes to be on the outside of the pipe when it travels down the pipe. The concrete travels down the pipe. The rocks tend to be in the middle. So as soon as it hits any obstruction, new pipe versus old pipe and an ID change, that barrier layer is broken and the rocks tumble. And it takes them about 6 to 8 inches for them to go, hey, we're going through straight pipe again. Let's put the barrier layer, you know, on the outside and, you know, the rocks back in the middle. When it hits an elbow, it hits it. It doesn't go around a turn. It hits the elbow and packs, you know, right where it's going straight. And then they tumble through the elbow, whether it's a 10, 20, 30, 50, a 45, 90. It tumbles. And then once it gets back going straight, about 6 or 8 inches in, you know, it goes, oh, we're on straight again. Let's put our barrier layer back there and our rocks to go through. So that's why, you know, we say, hey, don't just change out pipe piecemeal, because every ID change as you wear out pipe, new and old, all those little lips will wear out stuff. And that's why, like you said, Jeff, you know, those 30 degrees wear out a little funky. And, you know, it's worth it to rotate those, you know, to make sure that you're getting the life out of it. So doing the job, I call bullshit a lot. You know, I'm like, this failed, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, look, I did it too. This is what I did. I'm happy to inspect it and look at it. But that's how it goes. So James made a comment here. It says, you're not going to turn the pipes. It's not worth it. It wasn't worth it for me in Vegas when I was doing the stuff here, the rock. And then Travis commented crushed versus round. So everything in Vegas, all the rock was crushed, all the sand was crushed, all that stuff was nasty, and it just ate the pipe. So I'm going to spend a bunch of money and time and labor for these guys to do stuff, and it gained me another couple hundred yards. That's not, that isn't, the dollars per yard, the math doesn't work out. So it wasn't worth it for me in Vegas. People that have nice round river rock and natural sand, that's, you have better some concrete, Scott, in your area than, Jeff does. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And I do, did in Vegas, and a lot of my markets here on the West, in the West region, it's awful. And
it's gotten worse up here though, Mike. We don't see round rock too much anymore. That's kind of fallen by the wayside. But if we go an hour south to Bellingham, Washington, they have beautiful river rock in all of their mixes. But up here, it's really the round rock is a treat these days. We don't see it too much anymore.
So what we're going to see a problem with in the future, and it's going to cost all of you more money, is fly ash is becoming less and less common, or less and less plentiful, I should say, because fly ash is gained from coal-fired power plants mostly. And depending on the heat of the coal-fired power plant, there's different grades of fly ash. I did not know there was different grades of fly ash that are smoother and less coarse. I didn't think, fly ash had a coarseness factor. It does, actually. And the better fly ash costs more money. Now that they're phasing out coal-fired power plants, they're going into slag. So they're taking all the slag from all these foundries and grinding it up into a powder. So that's a lot coarser than fly ash. So if you're used to getting 80,000 cubic yards or 80,000 meters through a boom pipe, your boom pipe, and they change this other material, that number's going to drop. And then you're going to be like, hey, what the heck? Now I'm getting 70,000 yards or 70,000 meters. Like, what the hell happened? It's the material. They're, cutting corners. They're saving money. They're changing things. And it's going to make me sell more pipe, which is fine. That's my job. But,
we really noticed it, Mike, on the placing booms between that premium grade fly ash and the second tier stuff. To look at the concrete, you couldn't really tell a difference visually. But the pressures are way higher, and all of a sudden you're pumping this stuff and wondering why it's pushing 20, 30, 40 bar higher. And it's that, like you said, that coarser grade fly ash under a microscope is just a lot more jagged, and there's a lot more drag and resistance to it.
The term we use is friction factor. On my side, it has a higher friction factor because it's not as a fine material, and it's coarser, which is crazy. If you took it and we all felt it in our fingertips, and none of us could tell the difference. I challenge all of you to tell the difference, and none of us could. But that pump doesn't lie. That pressure gauge doesn't lie. When they tell you that they got it up to a 2 or 3 inch slump before they add plasticizer, and they're like, well, why'd the last pump, load pump out really nice, and I'm struggling with this one? That pump knows it's a tattletale, and that pressure gauge says, you suck, you're lying to me, you didn't do a good job. So
I'll tell you, I enjoy these conversations like this because it really justifies and just lets me know the things I've said in the past to people is true. And I would get a mix that wouldn't pump worth a crap. Of course, they use the excuse, well, it must be the pump because we sent you this mix before. And, I got to where I tell them, look, I've got a $45,000 lie detector saying you're lying your ass off.
Right.
And
no, you're exactly right.
And what Mike is saying is exactly what I would tell them, that I've got a lie detector and you're lying.
Yeah, it's crazy. That pressure gauge does not lie. That pressure gauge said, you didn't put enough water in this, before you plasticize it, because I just pumped 10 loads, at 1,000 PSI, and this one's at 1,800. So what did you do differently? My pump didn't wear out, but in those loads, it's like,
Yeah.
that pressure gauge says your pants are on fire, so, suck it,
Yeah.
but it's always us. It's always the pump, until there's indisputable evidence. And it's rare that we can clearly say, it's you guys, it's always the pump. It's always us. And they always, again, the wheel spins, pump operator, pump operator, pump, 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 pump. Oh, ready mix. There's only one spot on the wheel for ready mix.
So
then they get their Rolodex of excuses, and they start Rolodexing out. What could be the issue
I
on
think
their
they've got
end?
an index card they pull out of their pocket and then they read it. So yeah, those guys have got like 3 or 4 different lines, and I'm sure we've all heard it. And if we think about it right now, because we're not really thinking about it, we've heard all of them, right? So
here's a question for you, Mike. And Caleb here pumps a lot of shotcrete, probably more than Jeff and I combined, I'm sure. Shotcrete, even though it seemingly is so fine and pumpable and creamy and pasty, what's your expert explanation as to why it is so abrasive in high wear on wear parts, reducers, hoses? What is the technical explanation for that? Even though it doesn't have a lot of aggregate in it, doesn't have a lot of large rock or anything. It's a very fine mix, but the wear is quite high.
But Caleb's been quiet, so he needs to speak up.
Man, hey, you guys go on your rants about boom pumps and stuff, and I'm just a line pump guy, so I just sit here and listen and absorb all this knowledge.
Caleb, your line pump makes as much money as 3 of our boom pumps, so you're the smart one.
Oh,
because somebody told Scott and Jeff they could get it for $10 an hour less, and they are constantly trying to knock everybody down.
Yeah.
If I could shotcrete a pool every day and I knew it was going to go as good as the one I did on Thursday, absolutely, I would do it every day. 72 yards, had 0 issues. I had to stand in the freezing cold and rain and snow, but at the end of the day, that's a great day. No problems. The job got done. Everybody was happy, and big paycheck.
So for me, this turns into an education issue for the shotcrete guys. I think they all need to, go back to school, because they want to run. If they got to run 400 feet of system out, it's all rubber. Rubber is 3 times harder to pump through than steel, but these boys will not run steel to save their lives. So they run rubber the whole way. Their pump pressures are way up. They got to rev that engine way up. And since they're running at higher pressures on that machine, it eats stuff because the pressure's higher, all the way across their system. If they ran steel and brought the pressures down by making it easier to pump through, I think it would drastically improve their wear. The pump pressure would go down. That pump wouldn't have to work as hard. They'd get, more yardage, for less and use less fuel. All their costs would go down. But that's not how these guys work. Generally in line pumps, they want to run 400 feet. They want to run 25 and 50 foot hoses instead of, some 10-foot steel, 10 foot, 10 foot, 10 foot. It's easier to see if the steel's clean. You dump out a pipe, you look through it, and you're like, oh, this is clean. How do you know a 25 footer is clean? You roll it. And if it feels heavy, you rinse it some more and feel if there's a heavy spot. That's it. You're guessing.
Mike, have you seen our sponge competition? We don't roll anything. Here's a good debate between shotcrete guys. I've always been the opinion, if I'm going to run 200 feet of hose for shotcrete, it's going to be, so if it is going to be all hose, let's just take pipe out of the equation. For me, I would taper down to 2 inch right off the back of the pump. I don't like to run larger diameter rubber and then taper down, because I find that larger diameter rubber that leads to the reducer jumps around like crazy, gets beat up. Theoretically, I guess it would reduce pressure, or could, but I would run 200 feet 2 inch straight from the hopper. What's your thoughts on that, Mike, versus running, say, 50 feet of 3 inch and then tapering down? What do you think?
I was taught, that you run the largest diameter you can to the point of placement and change. Now that I've been around the block and I've, done different jobs, my feeling is that in different circumstances, it's okay to reduce right away and run small. So I think that's a function of how is the material in your area. I think that's all of it right there. Like in Vegas, when we did parking garages and, they've got, it's all precast and you had that 3-inch topping slab. If we used 4-inch hose to pour that, we plugged 50 times during the pour, 300 yards. We plugged all day long, and the time it took to beat out the reducer, stop the pour, start again, go again. So a lot of these deck pours were done through 5-inch hose. And when I started going through places, and they're like, oh, if guys had to drag 4-inch hose, they'd cry like a bunch of girls, like they're a bunch of schoolgirls. I'm like, that's what we had to deal with. That's what I grew up with, pumping concrete. You did a parking garage deck, they're dragging 5-inch hose because that way you could keep your pour rate up and keep going, so it was about the material. Now that I've been to other markets, because I had a very tunnel vision, I grew up, in a very ugly concrete pumping, area. So now that I go to other areas, like when I come see you, Scott, if I got 30,000 yards, 25,000 meters through a set of the best pipe Conforms makes, I was happy. If you get 30,000 meters through a set of my pipe up at your way, Scott, you're pissed. This pipe sucks. But that's what, that's because of the material. So the better material in the better areas will allow, this rule to be changed. And it's harder to clean out multiple diameter changes in system, if you have multiple changes. So if you change immediately and you've got good material, it's easier for you guys to clean it out if you decide to do it with a sponge or something like that. Whereas if I run 3.5 or 3-inch all the way out there and then reduce down, I got to take off my 2 and 2.5 and clean out to the 3. So I think it's an area thing, and your material. You got to kind of know what the hell's going on in your area, to make that change.
I think you're right on that. What I have found, and this is just kind of the theory that I've come to the conclusion with in my mind, is when I started out with running 4-inch, and then when you get to the slab, then you reduce it down, then you run 3-inch in the slab. And then, like you said, you spend all your time plugging right there at the reducer. Once I put the reducer at the pump and keep it at the pump, that probably 90% of that quit. And what went through my mind is you got this rubber hose, then you got a pressure point, say 100, 200 feet away from your pump, then you reduce down. Well, some of that rubber between the reducer and the pump absorbs that pressure, and you don't have the pressure that you had at the back of the pump. So once I put the reducer at the pump and just went straight hose, the same diameter all the way out the end, like I said, I lost 90% of the plugging I was having trouble with. Right.
So 100% agree with that, Jeff. We run our commercial line sizes either 4-inch or 3.5-inch. When we would run 3 or 4 lengths of 4-inch and then taper down to 3.5, just like you said, where the 4-inch would go into that reducer, it would plug like crazy. So we started just running 3.5 straight off the boom, way less plugs. I think going from rubber and then tapering down poses a lot more problems than just keeping all the reduction in steel with our material and what I've experienced anyhow.
So the funny thing is that the hose body, when it's forced into the rubber, you don't get so awesome of transitions because the hose will wear out a little bit, or there's a lip between the hose body and the actual rubber. There's more places for turbulence and more places to plug. So the more we can do in steel right away is probably for the best. Now, what I've been preaching a lot lately is all your liability as a pump company is at the back. A lot of it is at the back of the pump, because your testers are there, your operator is there, the mixer drivers are there. So I tell these guys, buy better stuff at the back of your pump. You know, buy quality product, not just from, wherever. Most of the guys are buying from China and flipping it from China and Turkey. But you got huge liability near that machine, at the back end. We sell heat treated and non-heat treated products. I'm like, buy heat treated products by the back of the machine. You get more strength, more pressure. They can wear thinner. All the troubles at the back of the pump. That's where your reduction is for most of the time. That you just said and Jeff just said. I'm not sure where Caleb does all his reduction, but the thing is that buy better stuff there. Who cares if it costs you a little bit extra? And one glitch, I guarantee you, the little bit extra that you're paying for a quality product means nothing.
Yep. No, that's why I need to get in touch with you this next week. So I need to buy a new reducing elbow, reducer. I need a whole bunch of stuff. And I thought it over, and I'm just gonna bite the bullet and spend more money on quality stuff. That way I don't have to worry about one reducer only getting 400 yards out of it and then having to go spend more money on another one.
I think with your reducer, Caleb, I think either one, they sent you one that didn't get the heat treated, or two, they used really poor metal on it. Because
I talked to them, and they switch manufacturers all the time. That's why their hoses are changing and everything else is changing, because they can get it cheaper from this manufacturer, so they'll go to them instead and charge you the same price.
Well, that's part of the problem, is that these guys are sourcing stuff, and if they can get a better price somewhere, they source it through whatever. Steel looks like steel. We had a metallurgist that worked for us, and he said, I said, why does our chrome carbide, or our twin wall last longer than other people? They have a chrome carbide thing too. And they said, chrome carbide is like making cookies. He goes, there's 100 different recipes for making chocolate chip cookies, but not all of them are awesome. We just have a better recipe that makes a better chocolate chip cookie than those other guys, but it's still chrome carbide or still twin wall. So, the thing is there's stupid little things. For example, that same metallurgist guy, he said to our mill that makes our, a lot of our single wall pipe, he said, we can do a better job, with our heat treat profile and make a better pipe. And the guy's like, yeah, what were you thinking? He's like, well, we've got room in the lattice work of the way the molecules line together, blah, blah, blah. And they're going through all their nerd speak about metallurgy. And the guy's like, you know what? When we do this for other guys, we add silica sand, and that silica adds that extra, little lattice work, thing to make the filler different. And it increases the heat profile and you get better pipe. He goes, great, let's do it. How much is it going to take? 90 pounds of sand, and a whole run of steel, which might be several thousand feet. Well, what's that going to cost? Nothing. So we have better heat treated pipe today than we did 5 years ago, because we had a guy in-house asking the right questions to make a better product. Otherwise we would have the same product, and it's better than a lot of other people's, everybody else's, but because we had a guy that has a specialty there, because we have labs and people on staff for that, they made a change, and it cost us nothing, cost you guys nothing, and you get a better product. So we're constantly looking for stuff like that, where, as Caleb said, these guys change where they buy it, and who knows what you're getting.
Well, I guess the other thing, Mike, if you have an incident and you're getting from a not established supplier, from who knows what part of the world, and there were the unfortunate circumstance of an injury and whatnot, in terms of liability, who the first thing that we get asked, let's see the paperwork for the gear that you're using. Let's see the paperwork that says how thin you were allowed to run that pipe. If we can't provide that, we're up shit creek. We don't have a leg to stand on.
So that is huge for me, for large contractors and people, that have a lot of equipment. So when you're buying from a company that's buying from China and Turkey and flipping the product, those guys are paying for the product before it hits U.S. shores. So it's paid for, and they just get a truckload of stuff. Now, if that reducer failed and it killed somebody, God forbid, that it killed somebody, and you go back to that guy, you can't go back to the manufacturer. You can't sue some guy in Turkey. You can't sue some guy in China. You can't sue some guy in Korea. They have no North American business presence. So you're going to sue the company that flipped it. And who knows what kind of, insurance they have or anything whatsoever. Whereas if you buy, and this is a shameless plug for me, if you buy my product, we have a North American business process, North American business presence. So I'm standing next to you in court. I'm listed on, the lawsuit with this to everybody else. So as Matt put in his comment about traceability, well, I can trace where my stuff comes from. I know where it comes, everything. We make stuff for nuclear power facilities, and we can kind of tell them where the steel came from, what's up. If they and this is getting off the track a little bit, but if they want really crazy trackability, for their steel, it takes a while. Now, what I'm saying, it takes a while because we don't quarantine our steel. We get a load of steel in from the mill, it just goes in the yard or whatever. But if some nuclear power plant is doing something, and this has happened, and they want to have traceability, then we quarantine a whole mill run when it comes in, and we make them stuff from special steel that's sitting in a pile. And we charge them extra for that because there's a lot to it, and we've got to let that material sit. But we can do that stuff. We have a heat treat number. If you buy our heat treated pipe, it's rolled. There's a roll mark on your pipe. So if we have a problem, I can take the paint off it, or I can have you guys do it if I can't get to you. And you can say, oh, that number is blah, blah, blah. And I can look back in my, at the heat treating and stuff like that and say, ooh, that was done by this guy and it was his first day. There could be a problem. But I can trace that stuff. I can watch that stuff. Whereas a failure from everybody else is, oops, they might have had a problem. We'll send you a free reducer, or we'll send you an extra free one. Well, if I bought 10 reducers from you and 3 of them blew the ends off it in the first week, I don't want more junk from you. It's cost me money. It's cost me time. It's cost me business credibility, with some of these guys. I don't want it. And that's why people come back to Conforms. It's because it's consistent quality. We have glitches. Everybody does. But you get a quality, consistent product from us, and that's it. If you get 50,000 meters through our pipe, you get 50,000 meters through our pipe. It isn't random. You don't have random blowouts. You don't have random issues. Unless there's, the guy hit a steel beam and dented the pipe and it went bad. Well, that's not me, so.
That's what I've always said, Mike. I'd rather have a pipe that gets 50,000 meters every single time than a pipe that one time out of 10 gets 80,000. One time it gets 60, a couple times it gets 40, one time it gets 10. It's all about consistency, and then we can track our hours and our meterage, and we know when it's getting close and when it's time to swap it out.
That's exactly right. So my boss was like, let's figure out how, we're 3 times better. I'm like, I don't care about doing all that stuff. We have a quality, consistent product. So if you get 50,000 meters through it, you get 50,000 meters. So you can set your software or look at your yardage report or whatever and go, okay, I got 40,000 yards, 40,000 meters through my pipe. I need to start getting another pipe set coming. There's no surprises, and Jeff and Scott, you guys and Caleb, you guys have enough going on without having to worry about, oh shit, what's going to blow today? It's you guys have enough going on. You've got enough things to worry about, so you can take, whatever we supply and put it off to the side and out of mind, that I don't have to worry about this unless I'm not paying attention, to the total yardage at the end or meters.
Yeah.
Question for you, Mike, about the conforms, the small line reducers, like the 4 to 3, the 3 to 2.5, 2.5 to 2. Can those be ordered with handles welded to them? Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay. On hardened as well as non-hardened, or just non-hardened versions?
Yes. Small line reducers generally have no safety eyes. They've got no handles, no safety eyes. So on small line reducers, if you want them, our reducers start with an R, R3025 for a 3 to 2.5. But if you want safety eyes or it's not a handle, it's more of a ring, so you could, if you had to hang it off the boom, it's an RS number for reducer safety eyes. S means safety eyes. So we do make it because most of the time those small line reducers are being dragged on the ground. Caleb's dragging it around everywhere. And if I got handles on it, it's catching on everything in the world because that pipe tends and the hose tend to roll as you're dragging it around. So
I hate not having handles. Is that just me? Caleb, what do you think?
I gotta have handles, man.
Yeah, I really don't like
gotta have
not
handles.
having
So
handles.
we put safety eyes on there, but we don't put handles on small stuff.
Well, I guess it really doesn't need to be a handle, but yeah, I've started to tie my reducer off the back of the pump to my pump, so just in case something does happen, it's not gonna shoot off and hit the.
Well, even
the
safety
driver.
eye would do it. It would definitely help. And what is the reason, Mike? Sorry for offering the safety eyes, but not the handle. Is there a technical reason, or it just hasn't been a thing?
Because most people with small line reducers are dragging system on the ground, and those handles catch on everything while they're dragging it on the ground.
Okay.
So this was a universal thing across the board, that we just stopped, adding handles and safety eyes to stuff because, unless they're requested. We have quite a few customers request it, when they order stuff. It's a nominal, upgrade, for us tacking them on there. So it's not a big deal.
Oh, so you're saying that the handle you could do by request, or you're talking to this about?
So the handle I'd have to ask for. Yeah, I'd have to actually say, hey, I want a handle on this. And since we're not buying these from, China, we're making them in-house. I can make that upgrade or make that change. So when you guys have an idea and I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. I send an email to my engineering team and say, hey, Scott wants a 3 to 2.5 reducer with a handle in the center because he doesn't like it otherwise. And, can we add a little handle? And they'll say, yeah, we can do it. What is this? What kind of size are they looking for? They'll draw it up. And then generally I will send it to you guys to say, hey, is this what you want? And they'll say, yep, that's what we want. And then we assign it a part number and make it.
And could you do that on a heat treated reducer as well, or would that affect the heat treatment?
No, because we weld differently than all of you, and we have way different welding equipment than all of you guys in the field. So, if we have to do so a lot of our small line stuff, reducing elbows and stuff, we actually weld and then send out the heat treat. So if you guys wanted a handle on it, we would weld it probably before it went to heat treat, and then it would go to heat treat. It's like an oven, with the small stuff, it goes in like an oven, and then they dunk the whole thing into a salt water bath, and then it comes back out, and then we're good. Whereas larger line stuff, we weld in-house, and the item is mostly full of water while we're doing it. So that water helps keep the heat, from messing with the heat treat. when we weld.
And is there any drawback to running a hardened reducer for line pumping application where it's probably going to get smacked around with a hammer quite a bit versus just running a regular mild steel?
Who's going to hit with a hammer?
Well, you don't, because you're on all 3-inch hose. You've seen what I do.
I definitely
I'm a
tap
hammer
on
guy.
I definitely hammer on my reducers once in a while if it's plugged.
So this is a quality issue of material. So if you're hammering on, beating on something and it breaks like broken glass, it's jagged lines when it breaks, that means that the item is not heat treated properly or it had the wrong chemistry, because it over hardens and it becomes brittle. We don't have that problem because when we heat, our chemistry allows what they call case hardening. So if our pipe is, where it is, where, inside it's super hard and it gets less hard as it goes through. So we have, it's more ductile. So if you beat on it, it's not going to break, like glass. So if you have it shatter, and it's again another little thing that when bad things happen and I look at your failure, I can look at it and go, ooh, that looks like it's me. Ooh, that looks like you guys abused it. It's one of the little things that I can look at from my perspective, to say, yeah, that's a manufacturing issue. Oh, no, that's not a manufacturing issue. So it's all about, like I said, the silica sand. When the guy added the silica sand to our heats when we make pipe, it just made the heat treating profile better. We got a better hardness on the inside of the pipe, and the taper, worked out better, where we have the ductility or, the hardness scale, as Matt put in there, about the Rockwell hardness scale. It's all about, how the Rockwell hardness scale varies. And the case hardening means it gets softer as it goes out. That's how single wall's built, so that you can not have that problem.
Cool. How about gaskets? That's a pain in my butt to have to change turret gaskets out. What do you have?
I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Jeff, don't bring up the formaldehyde gaskets till I'm back. We got to talk about that. I'll be back in 1 minute.
We do have a petroleum product impregnated gasket that's supposed to, that lasts longer, to lubricate. But the thing is that over time, the problem is that every clamp, except for, and the industry, every single one except for my high pressure clamp, there's a gap there in between the clamp and the weld ends. So it might be 1/8 of an inch, it might be 1/4 of an inch, but that grout that gets in there, like when you change your boom pipe and it leaks a little bit of water here and there, it grouts in. So as the turret rotates, it has concrete or grout in there, it just grinds the weld ends. So that's where we get into trouble, is that when you guys aren't changing the gaskets, and I hated doing it too, and I didn't do it. I mean, that turret pipe looked like a candle that, was like melting, all the grout, all over it. Mine looked the same way, because I wasn't going to go change that gasket, bottom turret gasket. So we got to do it. It's just something that it's just crappy, and we got to do it.
So greasing, we talked about that at the show. So greasing both sides of the gasket is a proper way of doing that when you are installing new gaskets or reusing gaskets.
So I think putting the lubricant in there as a professional, working for Conforms, I think it's a good thing. Now, the thing is, again, since we have that space, here, in between the two things, it doesn't matter how much we, goop on the inside of the clamp, on the outside of the gasket, the inside of the gasket. It doesn't matter because we've got play there. We've got space. We've all taken apart boom pipes and had to tap the little ring of grout, off. That's the space that we have in there that all these gaskets have. So it doesn't really matter. I greased the heck out of it, and called it good until it became a problem. Or I'm like, crap, I haven't done that in a while, and this thing's got lots of grout running down the sides of it. I need to go in there and adjust the turret.
So I've always wondered, Mike, why they don't do a gasket that's just solid, because it always seems to be our challenge is filling the grooves with grease, filling them with silicone, filling them with something. What is the science behind having the grooves in the gasket, and what would be the effect if we tried just to make a solid gasket that had no grooves?
So there's 3 types of boom gaskets. Let me get to do ZX's ZX Ranch. I have no idea why anybody would use a wax ring. Unless it just doesn't wear out, it's sticky, but I have guys say they use wax rings all the time. I don't get it. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't get it. But there's 3 types of boom gaskets. There's a cavity gasket, that has got a big gap in the center of it, and swings are very common of it. I hate that gasket. Because when you slide it on, and you're trying to put pipe on, it always grabs the weld end, and I'm always fighting with it as I'm got a heavy pipe, up there, and you're trying to put a clamp on there. I've always hated them. Then they have the swivel gasket that's got the little lip in the center, a little tiny, a little V groove in there. It slides over the weld end real nice and easy. I tell all my customers to use that everywhere, because now I don't have to have 2 parts in my inventory. I don't have to worry about cavity gaskets on straight pipe. I don't have to worry about anything really. I mean, this thing just slides over, it slides back. It's easy for me to fuss with when I got one hand and I'm trying to hold the pipe with the other hand. Then Pootsmeister has a T-lip gasket. It's got a little lip in the center of it that's supposed to take the space where that little gray ring, when you tap off, when you take the pipe apart, it's supposed to take up that space. Well, it's absolutely horrible.
It's terrible. Hate them.
When you put them on, I hate them too.
We cut the ring out and reuse them.
Right,
the little lip, we just cut it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like I tell people, just buy my swivel gasket for everything, and just let it slide off. You don't have to worry about, hey, I need some swivel gaskets. They're all swivel gaskets. They're all good. So
we've been doing that for 10 years now, Mike, and never looked back. Never missed the other gaskets ever. Not once.
I agree. And Zoo Z said, he uses the wax as a lubricant instead of grease. It's eventually going to get wore out, with the grout and everything else. I mean, it could work for some guys. I've never done it, so I can't, but I don't get it. I'm happy to listen to new ideas and stuff. I'm like, sell it to me. I've got 30 years in. Sell it to me. Tell me how awesome it is. And then I'm like, I had a guy, that told me about dual nozzling shotcrete, off the back of his pump. And I was just like, right now, this is not going to happen. It's unsafe. It's crap. And this guy had a nice presentation. He talked about all of his conditions for doing it. And, he went through about how it reduces the pressure on the pump and does all the stuff. And the guy can see, and I mean, he had a whole set. And I was like, you know what? I like your presentation. I think that's a great idea, with your conditions and rules they have in mind. So I'm not a stick in the mud. I'm not, I'm not a rules lawyer that's going to say, you can't do that. Sell it to me, man. Tell me why this is awesome. And, if I like your idea, because I've done it, but, if you're full of shit and you're telling me this, I'm going to call you on it and say, you're wrong, and this is why, because I've done the work, so.
Have you ever seen them do the opposite, Mike? And this is a conversation my brother and I had a couple days ago. It'd be nice if he'd jump on, but he's at home commenting on the couch, apparently. High-rise pumping, the opposite. 2 pumps feeding into one line.
No way.
That's kind of what I thought. The turbulence where the
No.
concrete would converge at the singular pipe would be a disaster, correct?
So concrete's always going to flow on the easiest path. So when this guy was talking about dual nozzling, he was talking about a Y, and the most important thing, and he stressed this, is that the line going out of there was the same length, same everything going from there, so that it fed equally. But if the pump senses and the flow senses, it's easier to go down this side of this way instead of this way, it's going to go that way. So if two pumps are trying to fight one thing, it's going to fight itself. Unless you're using a larger diameter line, or something, that you got to keep it full. I think it's insane. The other thing is that these new pumps go so fast nowadays, especially when you're looking at high pressure pumps. You look at a 14,000 Putzmeister trailer pump, which is, one of the more common machines on high rise and high pressure work. These things are monsters, and you don't need to worry about anything. This thing will out pump delivery. It'll out pump how fast the guys can place it. So what's the point? Basically, it comes down to what's the point.
Mike, what are your thoughts on water washing, not only on a boom pump? I think I know what your thoughts are on a boom pump versus sucking a sponge. We've chatted about this before. What are your thoughts on water washing high rise? Because it seems to be catching on more in North America. And I had a really good conversation with a fellow from Australia, from Meals Concrete Pumping. Shout out to Chris if you're watching. And he was saying in Australia they water wash every high rise. There is no other option. What do you think of it?
So the Meals guys, shout out to Alliance. At their Alliance customer appreciation event, I was drinking with the Meals guys, and I'm technical. I'm nerdy about this stuff. Let's talk. Let me throw you some curveballs. And these guys hit every curveball I threw at them. Talked about everything. Talked about it, intelligently. I mean, these guys were really well versed on it. I like water washing high rises. The thing is that you need some space. There's some extra things you got to do. There's extra equipment you got to have. But it's awesome. It'll save you money, or it won't save you money, but the contractor money, and it makes it more eco-friendly because we're not throwing away all the mud in the line. We're only throwing away a little bit of mud that's trapped in the line. So I like the idea of water washing high rises and large infrastructure projects, subways, things like that. I'm going down to Los Angeles to the Purple Line subway. They're going to water wash that because they've got several thousand feet of horizontal. And the best way to do that is water washing. So we're going to do that on their project. But boom trucks are weird. The reason why I say it's weird is that there's nothing in print anywhere from any safety organization that says, water washing's okay. And for that reason, everything documented from Schwing, Putzmeister, DY, anybody that's got it documented. I mean, anybody that's got any ACPA, anybody that's got any documentation says you suck a sponge. So if something bad happens, you're on your own because there's no documentation or no supporting documents anywhere that's going to say this is a good idea or you should do it. That's why. Schwing's got technical drawings of water washing. So
we have it in our manual for our old 4800. Tony discovered it.
So if you got in the shit and you got into trouble, hey, the manufacturer of my machine has documentation on this, and we're doing almost exactly, what they're doing. So there's documentation at least on that. Whereas water washing a boom, there's nothing. I did it myself, but there's no documentation for it. So if you get into trouble and somebody knows how to ask the right questions, or they retain the right guy that can ask the right questions for this attorney, you're doomed. You're doomed as a company. You're going to pay. You're going to pay anyway. You're going to pay more.
So on a high rise, Mike, you think it's a good deal? It's something we've pondered back and forth over the years, and after the photos I shared with you there a couple days ago on one of our jobs, it's definitely looking more and more appealing as an option.
So your brothers asked a few questions about valves that hold pressure, about this. So when you're doing a high rise, every 200 feet of 5-inch pipe holds 1 cubic yard. So you got to figure you've got 2 or 3 cubic yards, going across the ground, up the building, to where you got to go. And when we're done, we blow that 3 cubic yards back into a mixer. They take it to the plant, they recycle it or add it as landfill. So when we water wash, we can't, let's say we have 3 yards in the line, we can't use all 3 yards. We're going to use 2.5, because we can't have the water go into the slab, the structural slab. So we calc out that, we pour the 2.5 yards in the slab, and then we move over to a washout box, pump out the little remaining concrete, and boom, all of our water hits there from water washing. So then we send the water back down to the ground using air and vacuum, or the gravity in a vacuum will pull most of the water out of the line, and then air pressure pushes the rest of the water out, and it goes into a tank. Holy crap!
Oh, Jesus. I dangled the carrot. I knew he couldn't resist.
No, I just talked about you. So
I heard it.
The concrete, what's good is the contractor doesn't have to throw away the 3 cubic yards of concrete. They're only throwing away maybe half a yard of concrete, and then you guys are treating the water on site. So it's making it less wasteful, more eco-friendly, more green, and that's where a lot of these contractors going. So I think in the long run, they're going to start pushing this as they know it can be done. But most guys, because we don't do it in North America much, it's only mostly done in the Pacific Northwest right now. Until more guys do it, I don't think they don't even know it exists.
So what about in cold climates, like in the wintertime, freezing temperatures? What would you have to do as far as to prevent freezing? Would you just insulate your water holding tank, throw a heater in it, insulate all your pipes? Is there guys in cold climates that are using the system, and what do they do to alleviate that?
Absolutely. I don't know of anybody in a cold weather environment that's doing this, because once you get to a certain temperature, you're doomed. You've got to hoard all the pipeline and keep it heated. You've got to insulate everything to keep it heated. I think in a super cold weather environment, you're just doomed, and you can't do any of this whatsoever. I don't see it happening.
And would you consider BC to be super cold in the winter?
No, not unless I go up to Site C, or way up north of you. You guys have a very moderate temperature in your area. You get the occasional cold weather day, but whoopee-doo. It's not minus 30 Celsius. It's very reasonable. You guys might get down to -1 or -2 on occasion, but it's nothing crazy. And I had a long time. I had to ask a lot of engineers, what happens when concrete freezes? Because I'm in Vegas. We don't have, if it freezes, it's in the middle of the night. As soon as the sun comes up, it's fine again. So when I asked engineers and I finally got an answer, what happens is the molecules in the concrete, the water, tend to start clumping together to create ice crystals. And what that does is dehydrate the concrete. So we get all the water moving to like little cells or little pockets, and it dehydrates the cement so it doesn't cure properly. And so you get hard and soft spots in concrete when it's in that cold temperature and it freezes. So it's really a problem to pour it when it's in freezing temperatures unless you can keep it, properly insulated and properly heated. So with that in mind, we don't do anything. Nobody does anything when it freezes because this happens, everywhere. So Tony's going to buy a new valve from me and spend a bunch of money. So it's all good, right, Tony?
No, that's just if things go south and we need a tighter valve once we get up a little higher. But we still have to find the customer that wants to take the risk with us and go for the water wash process.
Well, for what it sounds like, Mike, it really isn't much of a risk, is it? It's been proven as long as you've got the right pieces in place and the right methods.
It's training too. So, Tony was asking about shutoff valve. So we need a positive shutoff valve that's not going to leak and hold the pressure. So, there's pressure on the line as it goes up the building coming back to the pump. So that valve has to hold pressure, so it doesn't leak out grout, when we close the valve. And it has to close fast enough that we don't, have a bunch of cement and sand separate and we just have rock. So we have to train the guys that are on the site to do the job well. So, for example, we have 3 cubic yards or 3 cubic meters in the line, to go up the building. That those guys are trained to go, they look at it and go, we've got 2 yards or 2 meters left on the slab. So we need to stop. Tell the guy on the ground, we've got 2 meters left, and, he stops, closes the shutoff valve. He washes out his hopper, gets everything ready, hooks up all of his water washing, gear on the bottom. And that gear is, we don't need to go into all that technical stuff right now, but he hooks up all that stuff. And when his hopper is clean, then that pump starts pumping up water. Well, we've got 3 cubic yards in the line. So that 3 cubic, meters in the line, we pump it out into the deck. We got 2 meters left. Well, it's all structural. It hasn't been watered down, hasn't been anything. Then they move to the washout box, pump out the rest of the mix, and then water splashes down, along with our sponges and Go Devil in the line that was pushing, ahead of the water. So after that, then we just send it back, through, other valves and everything to a tank, to treat, to hold the water. So there's more about training, it's like, stop, we got 2 meters left, let's go. Because if they just pour it all full, then we're pumping 3 meters of concrete in a washout box and then water washing. So what's the point? There's no point in it whatsoever. We're not saving any money. We're wasting the same amount of concrete, and they got to fly it off the deck. There's a lot of nonsense there. So we just have to make sure that we're doing it right, and the training's right.
Yeah, where I see one of the hurdles is going to be also getting that pump at the bottom washed out and getting the water washing process started early enough, especially if you're dealing with PT mix and accelerators. You may have to start it off with 2 guys down there, but then the contractor's not going to want to pay for that because that's extra money. So it's just getting the right scenario and contractors that want to have it happen on their site. So you've got buy-in from everyone. So you're not trying to do it all yourself with the fingers pointing all on you.
I think that's right. Like I said, water washing, the whole point of water washing is less waste, and water doesn't compress. Air compresses when it, under pressure. So that's why we get the big boom, when we use air to blow out. So water doesn't compress. So when it gets to the end, it just goes bloop, and the sponge pops out and a bunch of water rolls out. Whoopie-doo. But air, it's boom, and that thing rockets out through there and goes flying through the air, and rocks are flying everywhere. So it's safer to water wash, and we're not wasting as much material. But if we don't make sure we're not wasting the material, what's the point? You know, there's not a lot of point in it besides the safety. So we want to say, we want to sell this as we're saving money because you're using some of the material in the line that you normally waste, and it's safer. So we got to push that. And until we push both those items to make it, you know, to those guys, we're not getting anywhere, and they're not going to change. They're going to do whatever they've been doing before, and that's it.
Yeah.
What is the residual PSI of concrete once it's in the system and it's going up?
That's a good question.
Calculation? You have a
That's
calculation
a good
for that
So-
or anything?
5-inch line, it's 1.1 psi per vertical foot. 300 feet up, we're 330 psi back to the pump. So if the pump is pumping at 1200, its maximum working pressure is 1200. We're pumping 300. So it takes 330 psi just to push that material. So we have a lower working pressure at the boom than, you know, if we're pumping at max pressure. Does that make sense? Because we got to overcome the weight of the concrete and the column of concrete in the line.
Mike,
So
how much do things like fly ash and whatnot affect that figure? The
None at
variables?
all. It's just weight. This is just weight.
That's
Okay.
just the back pressure weight.
It has nothing to do with anything except for weight. This is just weight. Yeah. Because is there a friction factor in that changes at 0.1 psi per foot? Maybe.
Oh,
But
sir,
really,
we're talking about the water here.
we're talking about concrete in the line. So if we're pumping 300 feet vertical and we stop, there's 330 psi of pressure going back through the S tube to the material cylinder, and it's going to try to push it back or whatever. Or if our wear parts are crappy in the hopper, and we've got a lot of gap in between our cutting ring and spectacle plate, it'll leak there and cause us grief because it'll just leave rock there because it's just leaking the sand and cement.
Yeah, you lost all your grout. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just left. We're losing all our grout and we got rock there. So I need to get it. I'm going to run off I got to run off for a second, but you guys can talk to Tony about water wash.
I didn't know if that was ever a factor. If that's something that it's just part of the process, or if that's something you think about with that. So,
as far as the back pressure on the pump side, Jeff,
yes,
it definitely plays into as far as high rise pumps. A lot of guys are of the mentality that you just switch the hydraulic lines around to produce more pressure, run a bigger drive cylinder, and you can pump concrete to infinite heights. And I think Tony would agree with this, that back pressure factor, if your hopper is not heavy enough and not reinforced enough and you don't have the big heavy shift cylinders, you can make all the pressure in the world that you want. If those parts can't withstand it, your pump is going to fail at the valve before it ever runs out of pressure. From exactly what you're saying, between strokes, when you get that back pressure surge, is probably the most challenging thing for a pump in terms of a high rise application, I would say.
Yeah.
That's usually the biggest thing when you're looking at a high rise job. You're gonna usually look at what your final finish height's gonna be, what kind of volumes you want to achieve, and then there's nomographs you can use to kind of chart out your slumps and what your pressures are going to be at to decide if you have the correct pump to actually do the job. And Schwing, you can usually access them online. I think Schwing had some available. You can always call Mike. You can usually get stuff like that off of him. And then we have a Putzmeister one that is it's a computer calculator, and it's fairly close, but the old style nomograph seems to work the best for calculating that.
So high rises in New York made us up our game because of this back pressure. So when we were doing the Freedom Tower, which replaced the World Trade Centers when they came down, it's a really, 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 really tall building. So all that head pressure was coming back to the pump. Well, the manufacturers have done a better job with check valves and stuff. So it used to push one cylinder way back. And then, on Putzmeisters, it was a problem because they use electronic, switches, to tell where the cylinder is. So then they'd start acting funky because, it thought that the cylinders were really close to each other. Now it's the pressures push the cylinder all the way back. So it is a problem for equipment, on really, really tall buildings. But like I said, they've gotten better. Now, the next problem is that you had one of the Conforms diversion valves there. Well, it couldn't handle the back pressure. So the grout would leak in between the swivel plate and the face plate. So grout would get in there. And so over time, it would build up enough where that plate didn't want to switch anymore. And that damn thing always switched to the beginning of the day, but not at the end of the day. When you're done and ready to blow out and your day's done and you've been there all damn day, that thing wouldn't switch. Now the diversion valve won't switch. You can't blow out your high rise and everything else. So now this has caused us to reevaluate our seal pack and make a better diversion valve that has higher pressure handling capability, so that problem doesn't happen. This wasn't a problem when we weren't doing buildings that were 1,000 feet tall. It just wasn't a problem.
I can't even imagine that, Mike. We do buildings that are, I don't know, 500 feet in our area, and that seems pretty intense. I can't imagine pushing concrete 1,000 feet vertical.
It's insane. I had a mine project in Utah that wanted to put the pump into the project over 7,000 feet. We're over like a mile, almost a mile and a quarter, mile and a half. I'm like, are you guys insane? And then they wanted to use air to blow it out. I'm like, there's no way air is going to blow this out. So, I mean, you got to have like 5 diversion valves, and blow this out in sections. I mean, and this estimate was like $600,000, when I put it together. It never happened because, the state of Utah said, we need to do this differently. We need to make some changes. And this is a bad idea. But I was thinking, man, I'm going to make a lot of money on this one.
Imagine losing the system with 1.5 miles of pipe.
And that's happened. I've had some guys, that are smarter than everybody else, and they welded a bunch of pipe together so they didn't have to buy as many clamps. So they had 30, 40-foot runs of 5-inch pipe that they welded together. So they had 3 or 4 or 5-inch pipes, 10-foot pipes. They welded together, and then they tried to blow it out, and then they went, and then it plugged. And they're like, well, now what? They're like, well, we take it apart and dump out the lines. Well, they couldn't we can barely pick up one line full of concrete, let alone 2, 3, or 4 welded together. They lost everything on the second pour. And this is when I was in the field, where I was, working, and they bought it from us. They lost $100,000 in pipe the second pour.
Well, there was an old school setup like 20 years ago. Didn't they used to run so much horizontal on the bottom? This is back to high rise to try and alleviate the back pressure. I don't know if it was 4-to-1 or something like that.
You're exactly right, Tony. The swing used to have a rule of 2-to-1. 700 feet up, you need to be twice as the distance away. There's no way that you could do that, Scott and Tony. You're lucky to be 1-to-1 away.
You'd be running figure eights and loop
it's like 40 feet, a lot of 40 to 60 feet to the thrust block.
In New York City, they've got a footprint for the building. The pump is inside the building, and the mixer is back up to it, and it basically loops around and goes straight up the building. So again, that made us have to change our game plan and the pressure rating of our items. And again, this still is a problem with the machine. If we're going 700 feet up, we're 770 psi coming back to the material cylinders when they stop. So if they stop for any significant length of time, do we create a rock pocket right there where the cutting ring is? Where all of a sudden that S tube or rock valve won't shift? It happens. So those guys are trained differently to go, before we do anything, we go and reverse a couple strokes to try to pull that rock into the hopper, let it mix up in the hopper, and then off it goes up back to the building.
Similar to pumping a shitty mix through a boom pump, right?
Exactly. So I'm out of whiskey. I need to get more whiskey. I'll be right, but I'm ready.
Well, that's something that Bill and I do. If we run hot to the next job and it's 20, 30 minutes away, it's the first thing you do when you get to the job site and start setting up is throw the pump in reverse.
Well, you can't see it.
You'll get separation of your rock and the vibration of going down the road, and you can actually pack your valve in down there. But if you'll pull it in reverse when you get there, then you shove whatever much of material is there that boils up the bottom of that hopper and then gets the mud mixed back up for you.
Yeah, you guys must see some nasty material down there, Jeff. Some rocky stuff. Like I said, we're pretty spoiled up here. We don't see rough mixes too often.
The man sand is kind of running rampant in areas, so that's what'll do that to you. The man sand will let that water leach out, and then it just packs up down at the bottom.
So Jeff the technical term we use when we're analyzing mix designs, and we can analyze a mix design for you, it's friction factor. So when we were going to do that project in Utah, that was 7,000 feet, they were going to use manufactured sand. And we said, this will never work. If you use natural sand, the sieves, and all the, the stuff that they test us with, it changes drastically. And we're like, you got to truck in natural sand to make this work. Otherwise, it won't work. And it's kind of funny, that we have professionals that work for me that can look at that look at this and I'm like, cool, because I wouldn't have caught that. This is a job site, giant problem that's gonna happen. Like, why doesn't this go?
So Mike, you probably have a pretty good pulse on what's going on all across the country, all across the continent. Is the market shifting a bit? Is it slowing down? Is that just specific markets? What are you seeing out there?
I see a lot of guys across the country. We see a lot of guys holding their purchases back a little bit until they absolutely have to. Now, I will tell you this, that concrete pumpers, a good portion of them are reactionary. They're like, oh shit, I blew a boom pipe, I need to order a boom kit. Not too many of them are like, we have 2 kits on the ground ready to go when it's time. So they're reactionary mostly. And it seems like everybody's holding on to their money a little bit longer before they order something. Compared to maybe a year ago, they're like, you know what? I'm good with having 1 or 2 boom kits on the ground ready to roll when it's time. And I appreciate you wearing my Conforms shirt.
You like that?
Podcast. Tony didn't go to World of Concrete, so he doesn't have one.
I got my Conform shirt and I got my Pump Crate hat. Shout out to the guys at Pump Crate, to Mark and Craig and the guys.
Oh, hey! Speaking of that, so I told Scott, I was like, hey, Scott's at the Canadian Concrete Expo. Scott is competing with another guy he doesn't know. So I was like, you know what? I'll bring a hoodie for each of you guys or something. He's like, I don't know this guy. So I was like, you know what? I've got something else that's cooler. And I don't know if you guys can see it. This is a puzzle that I ordered from the Netherlands. And
yeah.
This puzzle has got all kinds of crazy shit happening, like an outriggers on top of the hose. And I mean, it's like all kinds of funny little comical things. I'm going to bring this puzzle, and whoever wins, Scott versus Hugo, is it?
Hugo is the fellow's name. Yes.
Is going to win my puzzle. And I
Oh.
ordered these from the Netherlands and had them shipped to my house. I got a box of these at my house, 10 of them, but I'm going to bring one of these to the Canadian Concrete Expo next week. And Scott's going to have a video on this, whether I don't know who's videoing it, but I might be videoing it. If Scott wins, he might have this puzzle.
No, Mike, unless my eyes are failing me, on the front, on the box, does it say it's 1,000 pieces?
It is 1,000 pieces.
Oh, thank you so much. That's awfully kind of you.
It's different. It's silly. It's awesome. And no one else is going to have this. So I'm going to.
Well, now the pressure's on. The pressure is on. I was at the yard tuning one of our Aircom remotes yesterday for on a little 24 meter. So I had to do a little trial run with it to see if I still got it. And the conclusion is I'm not so sure that I ever had it. So we'll see how next week goes.
So being at the event where Scott won his championship.
You were right there. Yeah, I remember that.
Scott used the maximum amount of time to score the maximum amount of points.
Within 4 seconds. I had 15 minutes. I used 14 minutes, 56 seconds.
So again, he's confirmed what I just said. He used the maximum amount of points. They've now changed the rule. We should probably call it the Scott Sutherland rule. That you get a bonus for doing it in a faster time period.
It's like counting cards, Mike. I found a way to dupe the system. So that would segue me into my next question, Mike. With the market potentially slowing down, and this was an interesting post that I kind of borrowed from one of the Facebook pages. What are some things you can do to increase business without cutting rates? What have you seen over the years? What are some of the most effective things you can do?
Too many guys. I've not been on your side of the fence for a little while. And I never really was, because when I worked at, concrete pump rental, I was doing a lot of stuff on the strip, on the Vegas strip, and the casinos paid better than, everybody else. So we didn't really have to go out and push work. So when I was the guy in charge, I managed a very huge $1 billion project, a $2 billion project. So again, I didn't worry about any of this stuff. So now that I'm on this side of the fence, I think people are afraid to charge for certain things. For example, guys use my air cuff in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area. They charge $50 a pour for using an air cuff, and they say, you can't kink my hose, and if you don't want us to rain concrete from this column to the next column while we're doing it, I'll use the air cuff, but it costs you $50 today. That $50 is inconsequential, to the guy's bottom line on the job site, because he's got to have a laborer there cleaning up everything as you go. Because you're like, look, you're not kinking my hose because it damages the reinforcing of my hose. So it's about, getting what you're worth. And a lot of times people are afraid in this industry to charge what they're worth, because Bob's Concrete Pumping, and no offense to any Bob's Concrete Pumping, down the street will go, I'll do it for $5 less. And it makes us all look bad. Our industry is super dangerous. People don't respect us for the amount of danger that's involved and the amount of work we have to do. They don't think anything of, we're waiting an hour for concrete and Jeff's bringing his boom around and circulating the mud. They don't think about that stuff. We have to. We have to pay attention to the job 100% all the time. Same thing with Caleb, in line pumping. You can't sit there for all the time. You got to worry about stuff. You got to watch the clock. And people don't realize how stressful and how dangerous and how important it is to pay attention to what we're doing 100% of the time. When I do safety presentations, with these giant contractors, I point all that shit out. That this guy priced here and they priced here. Well, do they have a maintenance program? No. But if they did, their price has to go up. Do they have a safety training program? No. Their price has to go up. Do they inspect their boom annually like their manufacturer's manual says they do? No. Their price has to go up. So now we're talking about a minimal difference in price, so now the best man win. And I'm happy with that because, the people that do stuff right, and I know that, Scott, you and Tony, you do stuff right. You plan stuff, because I work with you guys. You guys do the stuff right. You guys got supporting documentation. All that stuff makes you shine. But when it's this much difference in price, well, maybe I'll go with this guy. That's not where I want these guys to be. I want them to ask the right questions. I want them to say, hey, what are you guys doing? If you guys have problems, is Jeff the guy that they're calling, to run around and make sure stuff's going on and that, they've got a backup pump coming or whatever, or do they have any answer to those questions at all? I'm arming them with the questions, and the people that do shit right are going to shine. The people that don't, they're going to not be able to answer the question, which is okay because they're not doing the shit right and they're not charging the right rate. So, hopefully they lose.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And the funny thing is, the pricing disparity in our market, I would say, from what I've seen between the guys that are doing it right and the guys that aren't doing it as right, isn't even this.
No,
it's about this.
That's good.
Right. So to me, it should be a no brainer. But we also are in a very unique market on the West Coast here, that despite our astronomical real estate prices and cost of living, our trades pricing, for whatever reason, lags well behind markets that are much more affordable than ours otherwise. It's never made sense, and it's just kind of always been like that out here. And I wish I knew the exact formula as to why, but that's just the way it's been.
No, I agree. If I can arm these guys when they're quoting the jobs and the safety people, if I can give them enough information to ask the right questions, does that mean you guys win? The good guys win, compared to the guys that are cutting rates all the time. That's what I want.
Yeah, and if you're providing them the education they need to know the difference, it obviously it helps us immensely. So
right, I'm not waving anybody's flag in particular. I'm waving. I'm giving them information so they can make a better choice. So when that difference is $15 an hour, or whatever, the information I give them, go with a guy that's $15 an hour more, because they're going to hold those guys to the higher standard. And I know all of you have gotten jobs from guys that have done a poor job in your area. You've taken jobs from them because their equipment isn't maintained. And, they've had failures. They've had lots of issues, and you guys have picked up the work. And I just want them to do it now. Do it early. Let's let you guys, on the job from day one, not day 20. Where they've fucked up enough, that you guys have to do something. They have to do something different. So Zach put in there that they've got guys that are doing crazy prices and they're getting screwed over all the time. Well, all I have to say to you, Zach, is I will say this, that a lot of small companies do not know the cost of doing their business. So when they have to replace a transmission, an engine, or a boom pipe, a boom kit, all they do is cry on my shoulder. Oh my God, that's $20,000 to change this. Yeah. And then they go to some Chinese company or company, you know, that's selling aftermarket stuff, you know, or, you know, they're having to deal with transmission issues or engine issues, they don't know the true cost of doing business because their price wouldn't be that low. Our job is complex. The machines self-destruct every single day. They wear parts every single day, not just pipe, you know, but machine parts. There's a lot of cost of doing business in concrete pumping. You know, a lot of companies just don't get it. And as long as they, a friend of mine put it, as long as they got money in their front pocket, they're happy. But as soon as they get a $10,000 bill for, you know, an engine remod, they're totally hosed.
It's unique. Our industry. I think most pumping companies stemmed or spawned from guys that were pump operators and really liked pumping concrete, but maybe weren't business people. And we're one of the industries where predominantly people will pump concrete at cost or even at a loss just to be out there doing it because it makes them feel like that is success, right? And I think it's really like our industry people that are in it are extremely passionate. You kind of have to be to stick with it, but I also think that's a double-edged sword that passion maybe overrides common business sense quite often, and you know brings us to where we are, in my opinion.
Well, and I know that Jeff, you know, Caleb, you know, Tony, Scott, you guys, if it's complicated, your phone rings. If it's easy, the other guy's phone rings because they know you guys can do the hard stuff and you guys know what you're doing, you know, whereas, you know, the other guy down the road, you know, can do the easy stuff. And that's crap. You know, it's, or they break down and they go, "Hey, will you meet this guy's price?" The answer is no.
Yeah.
You know, we do a lot more, you know, for what we do, you know, so no, we won't do this at $100 an hour. Our price is a 175. You know, you got to eat it. You know, it is what it is. You want to
A
get
lot of the markets I've seen that seem strong, the perception I get is that they won't cover that job at any price. If you're going to use,
some companies have that policy that they're like,
yeah,
you made your bed with, you know, Joe Blow concrete pumping, you're on your own, bro.
yeah,
And that's cool. And I would do the same thing. You know, I'd be like, "Hey, you're on your own, bro. You know, I'm good with that. You know, because it, you know, it again. Look, do they have a maintenance program? No. You know, do they doing maintenance? You know, boom inspections? No. You know, just all of it. You know, there's so many factors that these guys aren't looking forward to, and the only thing I can figure is that, you know, we're in on the very first very first things that are going on in a job site. So they've got nobody to focus on, nobody to beat up. They don't have Tony to beat up, you know, on the job. So, you know, they're beating everybody up for $5 and $10 an hour so they can wave their flag and say, "I saved the company money." Well, maybe, you know, I doubt it, you know, because you saved them $10 a yard or $10 an hour, and you got some crappy company that's going to break down constantly and have to call me in, you know, to replace them. You know, there's no savings there. You've lost more in manpower hours, you know, than anything else. So it's about knowing your worth and kind of holding your ground, knowing where your minimum is. But again, I'd say 50% of pump companies do not know what their minimum hourly rate should be to cover their, you know, expenses. They don't. They just have no idea. They're just happy that they got money in their front pocket.
So here's one for you, Mike. We're actually over 2 hours now, but here's
Yeah.
my final bit. World of Concrete this year. Everybody that was there, and Tony, everything you've seen on YouTube, because some great guy posted a bunch of videos. World of Concrete 2024. What was your favorite, or in your opinion, the best thing or most innovative, the most memorable thing for you that you saw at the show this year?
Me?
Anybody?
No,
We'll
no,
go around the table. Who's first?
Yeah, you guys put in your 2 cents because I'm sometimes tied to my booth and I can't get out. So Caleb, what did you see?
Oh, I guess most of the time I just stuck around the pumps. I went and saw the Warriors and the Reeds and Booch, Swing, all that good stuff. And if I were, between all those, I would say Reed. Reed was probably the best one to, I don't know, talk, interact, and their machines. Just in general, for what I do, they looked like they'd be a great fit for what I do.
What do you think, Jeff? What do you see?
There was a couple of different ones actually for me. One would be the DACA pad that helped you level on the ground. It twisted. So
The leveling pad was amazing.
The leveling pad. And then Mike's air cuff, where you had the bag that could be changed out. I think that was pretty good on the air cuff. So,
what about you, Scott?
So it's kind of funny, and it's a little bit surprising, and it took a little bit for this to sink in for me to come to this conclusion. So, like Jeff said, the Dyka pad, extremely innovative, and I'd heard about that pad because we got a preliminary of it at Con Expo. So it was everything I thought it would be. Awesome product, but coming away from the show, the best feel good factor, like that I was really impressed with, honestly, despite all the boom pumps, as much as I love the LeBaire and all the new technology, the Reed booth, just walking through with Reed, the explanation of how they do things, all the details. It's just like a quality North American story, a well-built product that hasn't evolved a lot over the years because it hasn't had to. If I was going to go out right off into the sunset and line pump or shock create every day for the next 20 years till I retire, those pumps were very, very impressive. I was really impressed with the Reed guys and the product. So I'm going to go with Caleb and say Reed.
Now I'm gonna go a totally different direction from all of you. So Jeff and Scott show up in my booth, at the Conforms booth, and they're like, "Oh my God, Jeff, Scott, you guys are amazing. Oh my God, all the stuff you guys do." And I was floored because this was from several people. So you had multiple groupies from multiple areas that were applauding you for safety, information, and education. And for me, that was amazing because we don't have anybody that does that shit.
Yeah.
We just don't, and I should have probably some more whiskey so I can talk freely, but no, you guys did a great job, and listen to these guys talk about how, and there's a bunch of people that won't ask questions, about stuff because they're afraid, or they don't want to think they're stupid. And you guys answer those questions for them. You guys help them through it with your videos and information that you guys do. That was fucking amazing. Just listening to those guys, I was just like, you guys rock, because for me, it's all about education and safety. I don't care what product you buy, but because eventually, if you want a better product, whatever, you come back to Conforms. But you guys are teaching these guys, you're helping these guys, and you're making the industry better and safer. And to me, that's awesome. You guys rock.
Well, that was a highlight, Mike. I bumped into a 13-year-old kid that was there with his mom, and he came up to me, and the mom's like, "Who are you?" And the kid's like, "I watch your YouTube channel. I want to be a pump operator." And I'm like, but we have such a shortage of youth in this industry. And honestly, if something just like making YouTube videos once a week or whatever it is garners some interest from the younger generation, then I think it's a win for everybody, because that's our biggest challenge right now. Is not not finding more work, not buying more equipment. It's finding guys to run the equipment and guys who are passionate about it. So, yeah, so I really appreciate you saying that too, Mike.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
No, I like. I have not met Jeff before, World of Concrete, and we're just talking and bullshitting, and people would interrupt us. Oh my God, I love your videos. I'm like, who the hell are you? Where'd you come from?
We should mention none of them were women, not one. So when you say groupies,
yeah. That is also true. I just didn't want to go there.
Tony, what did you see through the YouTube videos? What did you see that you like?
I was gonna say I saw it from YouTube. It was pretty cool to be able to see everything out there. I would have liked to have seen that 28-meter swing pump concrete. It looked like you could go out and make money with it, even though it's 50 years old. And the Dikapad, that was pretty sweet. Like such a simple idea, and no one had thought of it up until
it's like,
now.
Why didn't we think of that? There's a million guys in their garage right now. I don't even want to say it. That are trying to make that out of wood with a bandsaw and a bolt and a nut.
That's scary.
The ACPA put out a call about a year ago that are looking for an old pump that they could buy, to have at the show, that they could clean up and paint, to show their 50 years of, being at, World of Concrete or whatever. And I think that's the rig that they found, because 50 years ago, I don't think Putzmeister had or, whatever, however old ago. Schwing was first in the U.S. that could handle the mix before Putzmeister, because that gate machine ate anything that they put in front of it.
It's too bad that machine wasn't inside the exhibit hall. I feel like it would have got a lot more. I mean, it did get a lot of attention, but it's too bad it wasn't inside the central hall with all the rest of the pumps. I think I agree. Would have been a better spot for it.
That's what they should have used for a pump rodeo. Good old black and
black and white. Tap, 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 tap.
I like black and white. Toggle switches I've never done, so I'm out. But black and white,
I've never done toggle switches, but I've done black and white. What about you, Jeff? What's the oldest remote you ran?
An 05.
Well, Mike, I super appreciate you doing this for us. A wealth of knowledge, and it's funny. I asked you if you could come on for 45 minutes, and I made the comment. Like every time we get bullshitting, it's 2 hours later.
This always helps whiskey.
That's Mike's hourglass. But I'm super happy to have you on here, and I think this is going to be great content for people to watch for years. So
in the future, you're going to see some videos from Scott and Canadian Concrete Pumper and me. I'll spoil it a little bit. We're going to do a boom kit installation. I actually asked Scott that we need to do this because I have too many people making too many mistakes doing this, and we should do a video. And he said, I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad you asked, and I just wasn't sure how to ask you to come up here and do it. So we're going to do that. Jeff and I are going to do a video in the near future as well. I'm booked all through February, going to do subway lines and all kinds of stuff. And my wife's birthday is next month, and we're going on a cruise for 2 weeks. And so in April, I'll probably be in a video with Jeff. We're going to do air cuffs and reducing hoses. So we're going to do that. Where are you at, Caleb?
I'm out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
No,
Caleb needs a new reducer, Mike. We need to help Caleb out with his reducer problem.
I will throw this out there that small line guys, we always have a challenge with, because they're always, I'm going to spend, if the Chinese reducer is $20 and mine's $100, they spend $20. So I'm going to make time to go out to see Caleb as well. And, whether I've got to supply him with a reducer or two or whatever, I'm going to do that. And we're going to go out and do a couple of videos as well with him. I'm not going to send Tony a free high pressure shut off valve for water washing.
It'll be in a video, I promise.
I know it'll be it could
Yes.
be in a video, but I can't do it.
Definitely not free. I saw the number you sent me.
Tony has expensive tastes. I'm cheap. I'm easy.
So
that might even get Tony a YouTube channel.
so I'm going to throw this out there, because I do the safety training for Conforms, I mean, and I'm also like an ACPA trainer, to do ACPA certification or safety training or whatever. But, if you're a customer of ours and you want to do safety training, reach out to me. I'll put my email in the comments, and I'm more than happy to discuss this with you. If you're going to make the time and have 10 or 15 guys, in this meeting, I'll do my best to be there and do some safety training, because in-person learning is better than anything whatsoever. Because, ACPA has a great program, but, when you watch a video, these guys are totally zoned out. I do some different things, and since I've done the work, people listen. And that's awesome, because I've gotten great feedback, like from some of the big companies I do business with that are like, hey, we've had 3 guys find issues that they pointed out to our safety people, our maintenance people, that could have cost us a boatload of money. And generally, my cost of doing this with you, not always, is that you have to take me for an adult beverage after everything's over.
Sold.
Well, I've seen the way you drink. I don't know that we could afford that.
No, I said one. I said a adult beverage.
Unless you're from Texas, then it's barbecue as well. Jeff's
Yeah, no. Jeff has a different rule. Jeff has to take me for barbecue and an adult beverage. Yeah, we've changed that rule. When he went out to dinner.
Jeff will make you the barbecue.
No, and as he said too, these guys in Texas have like $10,000 smokers and barbecues, and they like have rotisseries and all kinds of crazy shit. I'm like, holy crap! How many people are you trying to feed? They're like 3.
Everything's bigger down there, Mike. Everything's bigger.
I know.
Yeah.
Before I came on, they were talking about Buc-ee's, and I told Jeff, I'm like, I might have to have you send me a bunch of cinnamon roasted cashews from there, because whenever I go there, I buy that stuff and some other stuff. So he's now my source for, if I'm having a Buc-ee's craving, I'm going to send Jeff a text and said, send me some of this.
I think we got a little bit of a bromance brewing. We got a bromance here.
Well, I don't know, but
Jeff says he had me an air cuff.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Mike, and I appreciate
air cuff
everybody.
and cinnamon roasted cashews are vastly different in price.
Right on. Well, stay tuned for the pipe install video, Mike. We're probably talking March, April. We'll nail something down.
No, that's all good.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll be seeing Jeff and Caleb as well. We got lots on the go in the future, so it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Looks
I
good.
said just the only thing that's left in the cold is Tony's not going to get a free shut off.
Well, if we buy one when you come up to do the pipe install, we can go over.
No, I'm happy. When we schedule the time, I'm happy to do that afterwards. And like I said, you and me and Tony all get together and talk about it. I'm happy to do the video and stuff like that. It's all good.
Excellent. Well, once again, Mike, I really appreciate you coming on. And,
is this the longest show you've done? 2.5 hours?
Yes.
Well, I knew that it would be. I knew easily that it would be. Mike, you're the one guy ever. I was telling a couple people the YouTube video we did at your booth at the World of Concrete. It's the first time ever I've done a video 20 plus minutes and I didn't have to edit anything. So you sir win the prize.
No.
Well done.
And I try to remember not to say the F word or do something dumb.
Yeah,
where you gotta, when I'm doing that stuff, because I do the training videos. Again, I'm the training guy of the company. So I try to be more cognizant of it. So occasionally I'll pause because my brain goes, the switch is on. Don't say that word. But pause and then reevaluate what I had to say.
Well, you did great, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tony, for coming on. That's the second when I saw you come on the first time, I laughed because your attitude toward all this was the start.
I'll admit, Mike, it was pretty stupid at the start. I thought it was stupid. I'm amazed that it caught on the way that it did. I got to thank Jeff for inspiring me to do it. So, and
that goes back to what I said. For World of Concrete, you guys are killing it. You guys are educating the industry and doing a better job, than what we're doing with videos and stuff. They're listening to you guys because you're boots on the ground doing it. Jeff, Scott, Tony, Caleb, you guys are killing it, man. You guys are doing a great job. And if anybody, even when you don't realize the videos you're doing, you're showing these guys stuff and teaching them, and that's awesome.
If anybody's watching this not live, I believe Caleb, we can set it up that the comment stream will feed as they watch the video. So if you're tuning in late and you want to go back and watch it after the fact, all the comments in the section here in the right hand column should pop up live. I believe if you're watching on a PC, but not if you're on a smartphone. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, so it's got to be from your desktop or a PC. Okay, excellent. Well, we'll all be in touch soon, and it's good chatting with everybody. And another one in the books.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tony, for showing up. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. We'll chat soon.
I've had enough
over and out.
While talking to you guys, so it's time to go drink some water.
Like, share, subscribe, right, Caleb? Like, share, subscribe.
Like, share, subscribe. Hey, I'm almost at 1,000. We're at like 850. So
awesome. This will get you there, buddy.
We're up to 1,000.
Yeah, everybody who watched tonight, you subscribe to Caleb's channel. We got to get him there. Like, share, subscribe. What do I say? Keep on pumping, Jeff. Lock the
in.
and Mike says buy Conforms. Buy Conforms.
Buy Conforms.
All right, guys. We'll chat later.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.